Folks, I can have your attention here in the Media Center. We're going to go ahead and kick off our media availabilities for Ford Championship weekend, joined by the team owners vying for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series title on Sunday, Joe Gibbs and Tony Stewart. Gentlemen, both of you, congratulations on successful seasons. And before we turn it over to questions from our media, just want to get your initial thoughts as we head into championship weekend.
Go.
Well, this is how you dress if you have one car in the championship. This is how you dress when you have three. So I walked in, I'm like, are you going to court today? Or I'm like, oh, wait a minute, he's got three cars in. You got to step it up when you got three. You know?
This is the way Tony dresses. This is the way Joe dresses. That's it. Go. All right.
He's nervous. I've got him all tore up. We were back there talking, and he's just rubbing his forehead and everything else. He doesn't know what to do. I don't know why he's nervous.
I had a flashback to my years with Tony. Actually, for us, I'll kick it off. I would say that this sport is a brutal, long process. And when you think about it, what's really different from other sports, you go 38 weekends and you're fighting on short tracks, road racing, intermediate. And for a driver and for us to go through that, I think for each one of the guys that get here each and every year, it really is a testimony to how good they are. And the entire team, the crew chief, and everything that goes with it. So for us, having said how hard it is, we're thrilled to be here, and obviously it's been an unbelievable year for us. And I think it started off with the Daytona 500 and JD and everything that Tony knows how much all that meant to us. And so it's been kind of one of those unreal experiences, and for us to be here for each one of our drivers and for our sponsors, it's a thrill, and we're just excited. This is going to be different. The thing that I love about our sport, which is totally different than any other sport really, you got 4 teams that have to work together in order to get here. But once you're here, this is each one of those guys. This is their chance to win a championship for their sponsor and everybody that's following them. We have huge contingent from each one of our sponsors here this weekend, which is a huge deal for us. Everybody here knows our sport, what's critically important to us is sponsorship, and they're all here. And so each one of our guys are geared up. They want to win this, each one of them for a different reason. Denny's never won one, and so it's a big deal for us. So.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. I mean, it's what the goal of every organization is at the beginning of the year, is to go out and win races, win big races, and contend for a championship and try to win a championship at the end of the season. So, to get one in, I mean, that's definitely our goal. Our goal is obviously to be in the scenario Joe's in and have multiple cars in, but it's tough. I mean, it's you look at how the season goes, and especially during the playoffs. I mean, it's so crucial to get everything you can get with stage points and everything. When you got 3-week segments to lead into this weekend, I mean, just getting into the playoffs is half the battle, but then you got to execute 9 straight weeks and not make mistakes to give yourself an opportunity to be here this weekend. So, I'm proud of our group. I mean, I feel like we didn't get off to the start that we were looking for, but as the seasons came on, I mean, I feel like we've gained momentum and keep gaining momentum. So, we're here, and that was the goal all along, was to at least have one car here. So, I feel like it's kind of like poker. It's, a chip in a chair. So, we got one bullet in the gun, and we'll give it everything we got.
Let's open it up to questions from the media. If you raise your hand, we'll get a mic to you. State your name and affiliation. Let's start back here with Al.
Yeah, Al Pearson. Thank you. Al Pearson, Motor Week. For you, Coach, 2 of your drivers said yesterday that you work relentlessly. You never give up. You never take a break. You're always doing something. Legend is you used to spend the night at Redskin Park, night after night after night. Where does that work ethic come from? And at your point in what you've done, isn't it time to maybe back up a little bit?
I take it you didn't talk to Tony. He thought I loafed all the time, but no, I love what I do, and it's a thrill for me. Football was a thrill because I was a technical person and worked on that side of it and call plays and stuff. I came over here. This to me is, for us as a small family business. Now it's Coy has a big part of this. And we know JD spent his entire occupational life, and I got grandkids coming. And honestly, I've tried to talk a couple of them into, do you want to coach and things like that? I swear, each and every one of them said to me, no, I want to do what Dad did. And so I think they're coming. And so for me, I just get excited every day because I love the competition part of it. And think about it, we're competing against the absolute best owners and all of motorsports. And so I get a chance to go to a weekend and be a part of a team, try and put things together. I love that part of it. I love team sports. I wasn't good enough to play an individual sport, so I wound up in team sports, and I love it. So I think it's just that you have fun. I don't look at it as a lot of work. It's just, you're trying to do the best you can to help the team in every way you can.
We'll come up front to Chase, then Bob.
Chase Willem, NASCAR.com. This one's for Joe. It seems like we're seeing a different Denny Hamlin this year than compared to years past. So this is a two-part question. One, what have you observed from your perspective on the changes in Denny? And then two, how do you think Chris Gabehart has been able to help him both personally and professionally this year?
Right. I think one of the things for Denny is Tony could speak to this probably better than me, but if you go through a whole year like he did last year and not win a race, and you get everybody kind of the rumors start, is this guy over the hill? And I think Denny was fighting through that, saying that's not the case. But I think the fact that I think Chris came on board, and I think Chris really helped because Chris has a different outlook on things. And then I think Denny getting off to the start the way he did when that Daytona 500. I think that we all know that people mature and grow up, different things happen in their life. And so I think Denny is, I think he's in a part in his life where he says, I get a second chance, really, in a lot of ways. And he's making the most of it. And I think certainly Gabhart's really helped him with that.
Going back to Claire, or correction to Bob, then to Claire and Jerry.
Bob Hockers, Fox Sports. For Tony, this is the first time we've seen you since the announcement on the 41 car. Can you tell us what went into the decision to make the change? And also, do you all still plan to have an Xfinity car for Briscoe?
Well, we're working on all the Xfinity stuff still. Gene actually controls the 41 car, but we're all comfortable with the decision. I spoke to Gene a lot about it. We feel like Cole's done a great job this year, and Cole has earned his right to be in the Cup Series next year. I mean, with 7 wins and running for a championship, he deserves it. So, Bob, what are you tapping on that thing? Are you hitting your own likes? He's hitting his own likes on his phone. I know you don't have Tourette's, so it's you're hitting your own likes. It was distracting. I couldn't figure out what you were doing. I've never seen anybody do that. Well, that's one way to get your ratings up, I guess, bud. But it ultimately is Gene's decision, but like I said, this is something that as a company we all agreed with and feel like that. Cole has earned his right to be in the series and have an opportunity like this. So we still want to try to figure out how to help Daniel. I think he deserves to be in the Cup Series. It's just a matter of how do we fit it all in. And it's when you've got a feeder series and you've got your own program to work young drivers up through there, sometimes you get in scenarios like this where you've got more drivers than you have cars. So it's a tough spot to be in for us as management. But like I said, I mean we're going to try to work with Daniel and see if we can find a solution to keep him in our system and hopefully get him back in a car one day. But Cole has definitely earned his spot for sure. Everybody's worked hard. I mean, we wish we could have 5 cars, but we can't. So, it puts us in this odd position to have to make a change like that. So it's bittersweet. We love Daniel. We love what he does, but we also believe in Cole and believe that this is the right time and his opportunity. And he's really made big gains this year. I mean, we talked to him at the beginning of the season and said we need to see some improvement and see some gains. And not only did he respond to that, he responded with a bunch of wins this year and racing for a championship this weekend. So the kid has earned his opportunity to get this ride for next year.
We're going back to Claire, then Jerry, and then up front here to Holly.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I got a kick yesterday in the breakout sessions on Media Day with the drivers, Joe, your drivers being asked about whether, what kind of a leader you were, but also if you had ever yelled at them or if they've ever gotten a tongue lashing. And Kyle was pretty funny. And Denny said there was a time where he went rogue on a drafting session and then there was a crash and you said, "You're paying for that car." And then he won the Daytona 500 and you said, "Well, maybe not," right? So do you remember that? And Tony, have you done those tongue lashings and similar? Coach, do you remember that, what Denny's talking about?
Yeah, I do. And I was upset with what happened. And then he turned around and won that next race. I said, "Okay, you can forget that." So I don't think I've ever penalized anybody for anything, but I threaten them every now and then.
That's not true.
On second thought, there is a driver I worked with where we.
I had to pay for 2 TVs in the lounge of the trailer that I broke, so.
I used to try and get to the hauler as fast as I could if he had a bad night, because he's going to tear up the inside of the hauler. I used to get up there.
Well, I mean, I feel like I got pretty good odds out of it because I think I broke 5 TVs before he finally said, "If you break another one, this one's coming out of your paycheck." So.
Hey, listen, I got him in Richmond one time, and I beat it in there real quick, and you were ticked off, and he's in there all flustered and everything, and he goes like this. You turn to me after tearing stuff up, you go, "I ought to go out there and kick it." And I went like this. I started to go, "Okay, I think you should." Hoping somebody would put a lump on you.
See, as a good owner, you should have thought of that first, and I would have saved the trailer. No, no, and honestly, I can't say that he did me either. I mean, here's the thing: it's a sport that you're passionate about. I mean, every driver's different. And Joe can tell you this, and Joe can tell you better than anybody because he's dealt with more quote unquote professional athletes than anybody. And how you get people to respond is different from person to person. I mean, sometimes you got to put your arm around them and really, walk them through the whole process. Sometimes you got to be a little stern with them, but there's that one button in each of us that gets us to respond. And I think that's kind of what makes good leaders and good owners and good crew chiefs, good competition directors. You have to know your people. You have to know what that button is. You need to know how to get what you have to do to get the best out of them. It's not always about a tongue lashing or this and that. I mean, a tongue lashing is because you're upset about something, but when you take a step back and say, what are you ultimately trying to accomplish out of it? What's the right way to go about it with this particular individual? So I think it's, I learned a lot from this guy in the years I was there. So, and I've said it a million times, if I didn't work for him, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing now. I wouldn't be in debt like I am now. And I blame all of it on Joe. So, but it's great to have worked with somebody like him because he's worked with so many great people, and it's not things that you always see just that show up at the racetrack. A lot of it pertains to everyday life too, and when you get a chance to sit with him long enough, and when you shut your mouth and listen, spend more time listening than talking, you can learn a lot from this guy, and I promise you it helps.
We're going to go to Jerry, then Holly, then Dan.
Jerry Jordan, kickingthetires.net. For both of you guys, I read what Kevin said 5 years ago about this format being very stressful on drivers and could shorten careers. Talked to Kyle yesterday. He also said the same thing. And that's from a driver standpoint. From a team owner standpoint, what's the most stressful part for you guys of trying to get your guys into the championship race here at Homestead?
It's the same thing, I think. I mean, it is. It's extremely stressful. It's it's great for TV. It's great for the series. It's not the greatest thing for the drivers and teams, but if it makes our sport better, that's what we do, and that's why we do it. It creates a lot of excitement, but for the people that are involved and have to be a part of that for 10 straight weeks, it's the worst 10 weeks of your life. I can promise you that, because all it takes is one thing to happen that can eliminate you from your whole year's work and everything that you've done in the off season to prepare to try to get to this moment. It can be wiped out by somebody that's just running their first race of the season. That person can totally alter your whole season by one mistake that they make. So the amount of variables that are in your control are in your hand. The amount of variables that are out of your control are in this entire room. The scale of it. There's tons more things that can go wrong that can go right. But that's what makes these teams that get to this point at the end of the year, they know how to sit there and not overlook any detail, because they realize that one small variable in the equation can destroy your plans. So it makes us all work harder as organizations and as drivers, but it's extremely stressful to sit there and run through the playoffs and it's not like World Series where you got 7 games to try to win 4 of the 7. We don't get a redo tomorrow. I mean, it either goes right for you or it doesn't, and if you make one mistake, your whole season came down to one mistake.
I think Denny highlights that. He's had an unbelievable year, and then we had that 2 weeks ago. We had that one spin. It was one time. The car got away from him and tore up the front, and then we were in a bind. When you go 3 races and you eliminate 4, it is, Tony's right, it is really stressful. I will say this, when I looked at it kind of over the years, it does somehow, some way, it rewards real good cars at the end. I don't think anybody gets here unless you're really good, and that's entire team, crew chief, everybody. And so, but I think you can see how one mistake, it happened to the 9 last week. I mean, it just, and that kind of, I think that drives you crazy, is what Tony was saying.
It's part of what makes it so gratifying too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you accomplish your goal, you know that you had to do everything right, and like Joe said in his example, I mean, they had to overcome a mistake and had to overcome it by winning a race. I mean, you think back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where you had a whole season to make points up, the stress of it wasn't near like that, because by the time you got here, you had 1, 2, maybe 3 guys that mathematically were in it, but the level of anxiety you have and the level you have to perform at when you get to this one event is incredible. I mean, that's what makes this so special if you do win it.
Come up front here to Holly, then Dan and Jenna.
My question is for you, Tony, and it kind of plays off of what Claire had asked you, but I'm just curious how you have found your personality and your style of management as a team owner versus what your personality may have been as a driver, as a competitor only. I mean, you guys were kind of joking about, a rough after race, but is it similar, the high intensity, and also to that point, you've won and done everything, won championships and had all these drivers eligible for a championship as an owner, so you right away were successful, much like your driving career. You jumped right in and had success.
I think a lot of it's there are 2 different levels of intensity for sure when you're a driver versus an owner. And Joe used to harp at me. He goes, you're like a quarterback. He goes, your emotion trickles down through the entire system, and Lord knows he had to manage that emotion quite a bit. As an owner, it's a lot different, because it took a little longer than I'm sure Joe anticipated that it was going to sink in, but it finally sank in, and you realize everybody's feeding off of what we do. Everybody's feeding off of our emotion. If we're upset about it, the whole organization gets upset. I mean, you can be mad and walk through the whole shop, and by the end of the day, everybody's mad at the shop. You walk through, and we've had a bad weekend, and you walk through, you're positive and you're upbeat. By the end of the day, everybody's positive, upbeat, and looking forward to the next weekend. And I think it's just I think, like Joe says, I mean, time, guys grow up. It took me a lot longer. I'm not even sure I'm still there yet, but I'm work in progress. But when you've been around good people, you learn good lessons, and then you realize how you apply it to what you're doing with your organization as well. And so, you know, like I said, I've been around teammates that I had to work with differently. I've been with crew chiefs that I had to work with differently, and like I say, you learn how to push the right buttons to get the right results from guys and get the best out of them. And you know, when you can learn, that's something not a lot of guys have the ability to see that and know how to do that. And I think that's what makes you know, there's car owners and there's great car owners, and I think that's the difference, is how you organize your people, how you manage your people, and how you motivate them.
We'll go to Dan.
Dan Gelston, DAP. Joe, yesterday Denny said that he was going through a bit of a tough stretch during the summer in his personal life, and he relied on you a little more than maybe he usually does. How do you balance the personal with the professional? And considering obviously the great loss you had this year, has anything changed with the way you deal with your drivers or people on your team? How do you get through the kind of things you've had to go through?
Yeah, I do think it's made a big difference in my life, in that what came back to us after JD went to be with the Lord was how many individual people he had stopped to help. Or I got a little photo on my desk of this girl was, couldn't walk really. She wound up in the shop, and JD spent an hour and a half with her, taking her through the shop. There's all kinds of stories like that, and I think it made a big impression on me from a standpoint. I'm kind of doing big things and big this and big. JD would take individual time, and it comes back over and over again. There's a stack on my desk that I answered letters where people said JD took time out and helped me in some way, so it made a big impression on me. I think that he was really the spiritual leader in a lot of ways. And so, like with his kids and everything. So I think I did learn a lot from that, and it made a big impression on me. I think individually, what you see in the career of drivers when we're with them is so intense, and it's hard for them in a lot of ways. Most sports are this way, pro sports. You've only got a certain amount of time that you can do this. And so I think I always felt the obligation as an owner to try and give them everything that you could so that they could be successful, because their career, it's going to be, it can only be a certain amount of time. And so I think when you do that and you're with them for over a period of time, like we've been together with Denny now for 12 years, longer than that really. JD found him, everything that happened there. And so you see through his life, he goes through different things in his life. You're more mature, you've been through some of those things. And so when you see him kind of hit something that's hard for him, I think, you really are partners in a lot of ways. I know when Tony gambled and came with us, we were partners, really. And we, through his efforts and everything he did, he had a huge influence on our sponsors, building our company. I mean, he really had a lot to do with us getting to where we are. So when you see somebody going through something like that with Denny or any of our guys, that you've been with for a while, you share with them, talk to them, you're friends really, and sometimes you can help. And particularly if you've been through a lot of things in life and you're a little older, sometimes you can help.
We'll go to Jenna.
Hey, Jennifer, AP, for both of you. I know you two have raced against each other for a championship before, but considering the way your careers are intertwined, you're both going to the Hall of Fame together. Now it's just the two of you just racing against each other for the title. I'm wondering what that means to each of you.
It means a lot to me. I mean, it's like I say, at the beginning of the season, you don't know who you're going to be sitting up here with. It could be 3 other owners, and this year it's unique, and it's one guy that I spent a lot of time with and I think the world of. So, to be able to compete against him for a championship's a really cool deal. This whole year and everything with the Hall of Fame, all of it's really special to be, doing a lot of this with Joe. So, every week we want to go out and beat his guys. as much as anybody else. But, you know, at the end of the year to be battling it out and, you know, think where it was, you know, what, 25 years ago? God, we really are getting
28.
old, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
That means you really are old. You were old when I started.
I know, I'm in the fourth quarter.
Something tells me he's going to have multiple overtimes in his game for some reason. So, but it is cool. It's, you know, it does make it more special when it's somebody that you have worked with firsthand and have a lot of respect for to be here in this kind of scenario with him.
I think plus Kevin is, we've been whipped enough by these guys to
No,
know.
not
that-
enough. We got 2 more days.
Yeah, okay. But honestly, we have great respect. I think everybody in the garage area does for them. So it's got us scared and worried, I'll tell you that. And so I think that's it. And you can't, if you look at Kevin and what Tony and his group have done, Gene, it's just they're there a bunch and they can win championships and we know it. And it's just like we talked about. If they hit this thing, okay, then we're going to be in trouble. And so that's kind of what you're looking at. So
We're going to go over here to the left to Jacob, then we'll go to Nate and Jeff.
Jacob Seelman, Speed Sport. Kind of to dovetail off of Jenna's question, I think the dynamic even in here is maybe a little bit more fun than what we've seen in past years for this owners panel. I mean, do you guys get to have a little bit of fun with this and kind of the jabs back and forth at each other because of the driver-owner relationship that you guys had in the past?
I will say this, that the years that we had with Tony are some of the, I mean, they'll always be in my mind, some of the stories and some of the things that happened. From the very first time we sat down with him, we sat down at the FBO over in Indy, and it was me and Don Meredith. I don't know if you remember this or not, but he sat there and negotiated his entire contract with just him. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. We'll do this, we'll do that. And we went through the entire thing. And when we finished it, I still remember our discussion we had because it sticks vividly in my mind. He said, now the only thing I want to race is dirt late models. Okay, I said, dirt late models? He goes, yeah, you can't get hurt in those. No problem. Dirt late models. And I think within 1 month he was in winged whatever. And I never got him out of it. But I always think about, he sat there, is really, what were you, 22, 3, 4? He negotiated every single thing on our deal. We were calling attorneys and everything else. And I always remember that about Tony. Tony is very, knew exactly what he wanted. I'll say this too, a little story about him. We said to him, he said to us, I'm not ready for Cup. Don't put me in Cup. I have to start in Xfinity. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He says, I'm not going to make mistakes in front of the people I really respect. And I think he had a great feeling for his talent, what he could do, and he had great confidence. But there were some things about that meeting I'll always remember.
I think he forgets the last thing that I remember. We kind of broke off, and Kerry Agajanian was my attorney at the time, and I looked at Kerry. I said, "You see anything that stands out that we need to look at?" He goes, "No." He goes, "I'm happy." He goes, "Are you happy?" I'm like, "I'm happy." We walked back in, and Joe goes, "So what do you think?" And I said, "Well, everything's good except for one thing." And Kerry looked at me, and Joe looked at me funny. Don Meredith looked at me funny. I said, "I want to drive the top fuel car at the U.S. Nationals next year too." And immediately his head started spinning off. It looked like a horror movie. But that goes back to what we're doing right now and cutting up and carrying on. It started that day because I let him go for about 5 seconds, and Kerry's literally kicking my leg under the table like, "What in the hell are you doing?" And then I told him, "I'm just messing with you. We're good. We're ready to do this." So I guess from the first day on, actually it even goes back further than that if you want to talk about how it all started. I was hurt from the IndyCar crash in Las Vegas, and
Yeah.
my buddies had been calling. I'd been really depressed because if you live with your mom and stepdad for a month, you'll be depressed. So, but my buddies had been calling all day, and it was AJ Foyt, and then it was Mario Andretti, and then it was Steve Kinzer, and this and that. None of them were. It was all my buddies saying who they were. So my mom answers the phone. It's 10 o'clock at night, and my mom goes, "It's Joe Gibbs." I'm like, "Oh, great." And I'm like, "Sure, here we go. Which one of these assholes is it now?" So they hand the phone over to me, and I'm like, "Hey, Joe, how the hell are you?" He goes, "Well, Tony?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, it really is Joe Gibbs." So that's the way our whole relationship, literally from the first phone call on, because I obviously had to explain to him why I was being an idiot, other than I was heavily medicated. But I had to explain to him why I was being the way I was. But that's the way we've always been with each other. I mean, we've always had fun with each other. But I think as much as we've had fun, we've always had a high level of respect for each other as well.
I got to tell you, I was chasing him all over the place, trying to get him signed and trying to work things out. I got to tell this.
Do you really have
I
to
don't
tell
think
this?
you care
Do you
me
really
telling
have
it.
to tell this?
So I couldn't find him lots of times. I would call the girlfriend. Okay, and she would go, "Yeah, tell me where he was and everything, you know." So about the third time I called the girlfriend, she goes, "That no good rotten said, don't you ever call this house again." I went, "Oh, that was done."
We were ready to hold auditions again. It was time. What can I say? All right, we need to talk about something now. Oh, boy.
Get back to racing.
We'll go to Nate right here in the middle, and then Jeff.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. I hate to change the subject, but
I'm glad you are. Whatever you're going to say, I don't care if it's.
all right. I don't know if you'll like this one, but here it goes. Tony, next year will be the fourth straight season that Stewart Haas Racing has a new driver with Cole Custer's promotion. I know teams probably would prefer to have continuity. So, to what would you attribute that churn? Is that just the financial realities right now in the Cup Series that you go through that many drivers?
Well, I think you sit down at the end of each year and you look at what do we do to make our company better. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily financially, but you have to sit down at the end of the year and evaluate where you're at. And each year we've had opportunities to make changes, and it's happened to be with drivers as well. So I don't think it's not something we sit there and plan necessarily ahead of time that's the way it's going to work out, but that is the way it's worked out. So, you do want to have that opportunity for guys to have time to gel and mesh, and when you sit down at the end of the day, I mean, business is business, and sometimes, it doesn't necessarily work that way. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions that, sometimes they seem like a bigger leap and stretch than others, but, at the end of the day, it's a group of us that sit down and say, is this the right thing for our company right now?
We're going to go to Jeff, then Lee, and finish up with Jordan.
Jeff Gluck from The Athletic. Guys, obviously there's ongoing discussions about what the new car is going to look like as it takes shape here over the next year. When the end result comes and that new car is here, what are you hoping and needing out of it that you hope provides for both your organization and the sport in general?
I mean, I hope it just makes the series stronger. I hope we have more car owners that are able to come into the sport and, financially be able to be in a position where, they can compete with Joe, with us, with Penske, with Hendrick, Childress. I mean, we want stronger teams and have a platform where all the teams have the ability to perform at a higher level. So it still doesn't mean that we don't want to beat them, obviously, but, for the strength of the series and for down the road, I mean, this series has to be healthy. I mean, you look at Formula One, and I know worldwide people geek out over Formula One. I love looking at the technology of it, but there's realistically 2, maybe 3 manufacturers that have a shot at winning a race each week, and it's not going to be anybody outside of those 3. That's something that NASCAR has done extremely well over its history, is being able to make sure that teams have the opportunity to compete at a high level. And we get caught, and NASCAR does too, and there's times I give NASCAR more grief than probably anybody in the garage area. But the thing that they historically have done extremely well in the long haul is being able to combat technology and figure out a way to find a package that works and works well for everyone. So, I think at the end of the day, what I look for, I mean, obviously anything we can do to make it financially better for all of us, it's good for the health of the sport. So we need car owners. We need new car owners in the sport. We need new manufacturers in the sport, and being able to work on this new car and the things that are in discussion and the moving pieces that are going on are really exciting and give you hope that this has got we've got a lot to look forward to in the future. I think they're doing a really good job. They went out way out on this limb, and I think it's something that scared a lot of people at first, but when you really sit down and talk to them and talk about their vision of what and why they're doing this and what they're trying, the objectives they're trying to gain with it, it makes sense, and I think it makes sense for all of us and gives us a lot to look forward to.
I think from Jim on down, France on down, I think everybody's really engaged right now. And obviously, I think I reflect on it, what's best for our sport, like Tony talked about, new owners, new OEMs, but also for sponsors. Sponsors are our lifeblood. And for us, I think that's critically important for us. We got an uptick this year in our TV stuff and numbers, which is good. Most sports are struggling, so hopefully we're in a good place there. But I think social and digital is huge. We're all actively engaged in that. I know NASCAR is leading the way with a lot of things we're doing there. But I think I reflect on it for the health of the sport. I think that's where we are. And I think everybody right now is working hard, tons of meetings, everybody's full speed ahead, trying to do smart, right things for our sport. I reflect on things. I know Tony goes to a lot of dirt tracks and a lot of things. I'm in South Boston watching my grandson race. The place is packed on Friday night. You can't get another person in there. People love to watch cars, love to watch the thrill of victory, agony of defeat, the competition, everything that takes place in our sport. And the fact that our sport is really different. I love the fact that people can actually get an autograph on race day. They're a part of it. They go to hospitalities. Our sport's just got so much to, I think it's got so much to offer a fan, a sponsor. And so that's the reason why I'm excited about it, because I think we're all engaged right now. What's best for the sport? And 2021 is going to be a huge deal. And so we're all engaged with it. We're all working hard on it. And so I reflect on things, what makes it easier for us to sign a sponsor, and what makes this more of a palatable way for us to race cars. And for our family, Coy, and everybody in my family, we're heavily engaged in that. I got Dave here. We got a lot of people who have been with us 28 years that have built our race team. We give out 20-year awards every year, and it's just unbelievable the number of people who have been with us over that period of time. So our obligation to them is to have a healthy race team. We got sponsors like Toyota and all the other sponsors that we have. I couldn't start going through them because we have so many, but it's just a huge deal for us. Now, I'm thrilled with the fact that we're heavily engaged in meetings all the time. We were in a meeting on Wednesday with NASCAR, and I think we're after it. And so I think that's good, and I think we got a lot to look forward to in the future.
I mean, this weekend's a perfect example. I mean, we can talk about TV ratings all day long, but I think what gets overlooked is how many people you got coming back to the racetracks, and another sellout this weekend already. It's proof that it's gaining momentum again and going the right direction. Where all the other sports are struggling. I mean, and all the sports are struggling, but this has been, we're finally getting in a position where NASCAR is actually starting to turn upward again and gain momentum, and you're seeing it in the stands, you're seeing it in the ratings. I mean, it's making a comeback, and that's positive for all of us.
We're going to finish up front right here with Lee.
SpencerRacingBoys.com. Joe, you hired an adult for your race team this year, and Martin Truex Jr. under the radar, doesn't get in the spotlight the way that Kyle and Denny do, but 7 wins. I mean, he leads the tour. What has he meant to the organization to bring in somebody like that?
Like
Martin Truex Jr.
Martin, yeah, Martin. I got to tell you, Martin has I think Martin had gone for a long time in his career, didn't have a lot of wins, and now over these last 3 years, 4 years, he's such a easy person to work with. He's heavily engaged. I think he's super competitive. Between him and Cole, I think they've got a great relationship going, and I think they're awful good. You can't shake him up. He gets, as Tony talked about, drivers have different personalities. Some of them get out of the car and you can read them, you know, extremely upset, all the things. That Martin, in our meetings, very calculated, smart, and so I got a lot of respect for him, and I think he's got a long way to go in his career, too. I really do. I think he's going to be around for a long time. He's going to be winning races. So having him come in with Cole has really meant a lot to our race team because, you know, what you're trying to do during the week is solve problems. 4 teams work together. What I love about our sport, then you go to the racetrack and you got 4 individual efforts going after it. And that's hard to do, put all that together. But I think they've been a big part of what's happened this year, and they've added a lot.
And Tony, real quick, there's been a lot of talk that David Gravel will be in a truck next year. What do you think his transition will be like?
I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, obviously, David's one of the best wing sprint car drivers in the world right now. So, you know, winning the Knoxville Nationals and, you know, ran 3rd in the points. So to get an opportunity where he gets a chance, which, you know, it really hasn't happened for a World Outlaw driver to get an opportunity to come to NASCAR for quite a while. So it's exciting in the open wheel industry and community to see David get this opportunity, even though it's a limited schedule. Just the fact that somebody from wing sprint car racing is getting an opportunity again is exciting for us. He's a great talent. I mean, I think he's shown that getting in different cars and being able to still get up front and win races. So, you know, I think we're all excited for him. We all want him to do well and wish him the best.
Gentlemen, thank you for the generosity with your time, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.